can tell you people they were the devil's children.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Mickey, Aurora, and from me. Well, today I am going to address a subject that many of you have wanted me to address before, and I have had so many questions on it in one shape or form or another that I am actually going to just clear up one or two things first and make a correction, because if one's wrong or appears to be wrong, one must put things right, and then I am going to plunge in. So I am going to start with what Perpetua Pimlico says. And Perpetua Pimlico informs me that Ashley K. Hale is registered as an attorney with the Virginia Bar. If that is the same Ashley Hale that is Meghan's niece, her sister Samantha's daughter, that might explain why those who have done checks on her can't find her registered in California. And that could explain why she is possibly, there's some question as to her actual qualifications. So in fairness to Ashley Hale, I think it is important, and in fairness to Meghan and Harry, that it is important that the question as to whether Ashley is a lawyer or not be decided in her favor if she is registered with the Virginia Bar. Okay? So now I am going to, before plunging in with something that giz some of these names says, which is quite entertaining, and then we're going to plunge into the really extremely important matter of the British people's right to have doubts cleared up with regards to anybody in the line of succession, and also in the interests of the parties themselves involved. I had not intended, as you might know, to actually address this on this forum, but I was on Dan Wooten's show the other evening, and he asked me certain questions and I answered them. And I think that it's only fair that I really just address this once and for all on this channel. Of course, I address it more comprehensively in my book than I am going to be able to address it here. Nevertheless, I am going to address it. But first of all, we're going to have a little fun with giz, some of these names. Lady C, thank you for your wit and wisdom. Glad you enjoy it. Never miss your videos. Thank you very much. I wonder what you think about the references Meghan and Harry frequently make, which have double meanings: roast chicken, waffle maker, and now strawberry jam. Often the Urban Dictionary has pretty racy meanings, and I'm positive they are mocking both the media and the public. Nachos Post. Did I tell you I live for strawberry jam? Just seems so suggestive. Do they think we are so simple? What are your thoughts, Lady C? Well, I'm afraid I'm very simple. It hadn't occurred to me that strawberry jam could have another interpretation, but I have discovered it does. Was Nacho Figueras being provocative? Was it coincidental? Or are all of these phrases and badges of adoration that are put forth to the public, are they meant to have double meanings? And do they indeed have double meanings? Of course, you forgot Archie's first word, which was crocodile, and how he was asking his great-grandmother for a waffle maker so he could have waffles. But you didn't forget waffle maker, but you did forget crocodile. Anything is possible when you're dealing with duality of the nature and to the extent that you are dealing with it with Meghan and Harry. Anything is possible. Also, Harry is a self-acknowledged drug taker. And now, I'm from the generation, although I was never into drugs. When friends of mine used to say, oh, take this, it will blow your mind. I'd say, the one thing I need is my mind. Thank you very much. I don't intend to blow it. And I made sure that I didn't blow it. But, and I have to tell you, some of them, you can see that the drugs definitely had an effect on their minds. And of course, some of them have long since wafted off to the great party in the sky. I'm sure gratis their habits sometimes were definitely contributing factors. Let's put it that way. Harry and Meghan certainly strike me as the type that would actually play games like that and think it was very funny and think, oh, dupe them yet again. Aren't we clever? They're so stupid. And it has to be said, some of us are more gullible than others, because, of course, none of this is my world whatsoever. And therefore, I had absolutely no idea that anything could have a double meaning of this nature. And it's very interesting that strawberry jam, especially when one considers that Meghan and Harry are great proponents of the fiction that theirs is the greatest love since Romeo and Juliet. And I know as a fact that they flaunted their desire for each other in the most unseemly way when they were in England, to such an extent that people stopped asking them to dinner parties. It's in my book. It's in the original version of my book as well as this version. So, what are my thoughts? Possible. Possible. Maybe even likely. You know, there's a certain type of personality that loves playing cat and mouse games with people. My mother was one. I know one or two other people who are like that. And they always think they're so clever that nobody's going to rumble them. And when you rumble them, they think, oh, you see, I had you, if only for a while. See how clever I am and how easy it is to dupe you. The delights of duping. Well, I'm afraid I'm not into duping, so, but possible. So now we get down to the nitty gritty, which is the whole issue of what the palace and the authorities should do about the questions that have arisen as a result of Meghan's conduct surrounding the birth of Archie in particular, and following upon that, and as a consequence of that, the birth of Lilibet. Let me say, first of all, a situation like this is unique. It has never arisen in the annals of history before. Other questions about the possible entitlement of children to a throne have arisen, even down to King Edward IV, and to what extent he was legitimate. So these things go way back. Incidentally, King Edward IV, he was an ancestor of the Tudors, because his daughter, Princess Elizabeth of York, married Henry VII and produced Henry VIII, and then he produced Mary and Elizabeth. And through one of his other granddaughters, the line goes through James V of Scotland, James VI of Scotland, down to the present King of the United Kingdom. In those days, of course, there was no possibility of assurance, and after the warming pan incident that was really fabricated by the Protestants to hound James II off the throne, because there is little doubt that his son James, Prince of Wales, was absolutely legitimate and born to Mary of Modena, who was his queen. But it cost him his throne. The warming pan incident is what it's gone down in history as. And after that, there was a rule passed, really, requiring the Home Secretary to be present at the birth of all children of the monarch and the monarch's spouse. And it extended to all close members of the royal family who were producing possible heirs to the throne. For instance, the late Queen Mother, when she was Duchess of York, the Home Secretary had to wait, I think, 3 weeks up at Balmoral because Princess Margaret was so late, cooling his heels until she delivered Princess Margaret. And at the time of Princess Margaret's birth in 1930, there was no expectation that either Princess Margaret or her elder sister, Princess Elizabeth, who did accede to the throne as Queen Elizabeth II, would actually stand a chance of coming as close to the throne as they did. This continued until 1936. Princess Alexandra's birth was the last of the births to be witnessed by the Home Secretary. Thereafter, they felt there was no need for the Home Secretary to witness the birth because there was competent, reliable medical witness to the birth. And there was never any doubt that any of the children who were produced by the women who gave birth to them, because every single birth has been signed off by doctors and signed, the bulletin signed by the medical attendants and put on the easel at Buckingham Palace. The sole exception was Archie. I'm not going to go in now. If you want to get to the background of it all, you can read my book. Or on some other occasion, I can speak about it. I don't want to speak about it now. It's extraneous to the matter at hand. But the fact of the matter is that Meghan's conduct leading up to the birth of Archie has raised valid suspicions as to whether indeed she gave birth to that child. Consequent upon that has been the suspicion that she did not give birth to Lili either. Both births were engulfed with mystery, lack of transparency, in a way that has been very damaging to the British royal family, its reputation, to the interests of this nation, because those of us who are monarchists do not want to see a situation rumbling on where there are doubts as a result of the conduct of a member of the family as to whether a close heir to the throne does indeed have the right to the throne. It's not fair to the crown. It's not fair to the monarchy. It's not fair to the children. It's actually not fair to Meghan and Harry either, because it causes doubts as to their reliability, as to their veracity, as to their overall conduct. Now, we live in a country that is governed by law, and you cannot have the royal family breaking the law, especially over a constitutional matter. As a result of the way this situation has developed, the royal family has been put into a very invidious position. There are doubts as to whether the crown colluded, which it did not, incidentally. My understanding is that any doubts that have arisen, funnily enough, and I go into this in my book, washed up with the family itself, on the shores of the family itself, let me put it that way, having battered around in the harbour of the palace, the press, and the internet. Sometimes the last people to know are those who are closest to, well, whose interests are more greatly involved than anyone else's. Let me put it that way. There is no doubt that at some point everyone became aware of the fact that something was seriously amiss in terms of acceptance of the birth of those children. And in my view, the matter should be cleared up once and for all. Before, I will tell you what my solution is, and then I'm going to break down some of the issues at hand and how this situation has come to pass. The royal family has to function within the law. The royal family is obliged, once a birth certificate is tendered that appears to be legal, to register, to have the children put in the line of succession. Now, Harry and Meghan's conduct has been such that they have destroyed, as a result of their behaviour, trust that would otherwise have devolved upon them. So they have only themselves to blame. Also, Harry's very assertion 2 days after Archie was supposed to have been born, that Archie was 2 weeks old, is a red flag. Right there, that alone should be all the justification that is needed for the palace to understand that they have a duty of care to the monarchy, to the citizens of this country, to the children involved, as well as to the couple involved. It's really very simple. If Meghan gave birth to Archie and to Lilibet, it couldn't be simpler. We, the people of this country and every other country to which Archie has the right as head of state, there are several realms, including at the moment Jamaica. So I have skin in this game, not only as a Jamaican, but as a Briton. And the royal family owes a duty of care to clear up any doubts that exist, irrespective of whether Harry and Meghan feel that their right to privacy is going to be violated. Harry and Meghan's right to privacy does not trump the British people and the Jamaican people's right to know that an heir to the throne is born of the body of the woman who is listed on his birth certificate. It couldn't be simpler. In a situation such as this, where you have the interests of a whole series of nations balanced against the rights, I should say, of not interests, the rights as well as the interests of several nations balanced against the rights of the couple, it has always been an accepted fact that no royal wife giving birth to a close heir to the throne has a right to so much privacy that nobody can attest without doubt to the fact that that child is entitled to its place in the line of succession. That was the principle from 1689 to 1936 and continued until Meghan decided to drive a coach and horses through our rights. It's our right to know that the heir to our throne is who it is supposed to be. It couldn't be simpler. Yes, she has a right to privacy. Nobody is saying that the birth should have been recorded and then aired on television. But what I am saying is, whoever witnessed that birth should be able to stand up and say, indisputably, and it should be more than one person. It has traditionally always been more than one person. The Home Secretary didn't hover over the bed, let me look. The Home Secretary was in the next room while the midwives and the doctors and the nurses were in the room with the mother who was giving a birth. We need to be clear about whose rights trump whose. The fact that the palace has so far ignored the situation is, in my view, a matter of total incompetency on behalf of sorry, I need to be very careful what I say. It is total incompetence where their advisors are concerned. I have addressed this before with senior courtiers as a result of, it must be tens of thousands of comments that I have received from the public, that actually, ultimately, my hand was forced into contacting him. And I'm not going to mention his name. I'm not going to embarrass him. And I'm not going to go into the details of what our discussions were. My feeling then and my feeling now is that this matter is too damaging to the reputation of the royal family. It introduces a doubt where no doubt should exist. There should be no doubt as to the fact that those two children have been rightfully included in the line of succession. There should be no doubt that the family is prepared and the authorities are prepared to clear up the mystery that has been created by Meghan and Harry, especially Meghan, because she's the one who is supposed to have given birth to those children. And he is the one who actually stated on television for all the world to see that the child was 2 weeks older than it was allegedly meant to be. And the reality couldn't be simpler. Whose rights trump whose? Meghan and Harry have shown themselves to be so unreliable and so untrustworthy and such game players. And they have, certainly he has confessed to modes of behavior and habits which call into question his actual ability to qualify as somebody of any reliability. You could say their actual behavior has called into question the extent of their mental health, which they have both traded upon as being lacking. So if they are not, by their own account, they have had mental health issues. By the evidence of their conduct, they are huge game players who create mischief, whether for the fun of it, because they are mentally challenged and I would have said somewhat defective in terms of reliability. I'm being very careful, incidentally, what I say. So bear with me, because I'm making absolutely sure that I don't present anybody with a dagger to use against me legally. Their conduct has called into question their ability to be responsible, to behave responsibly, for us to accept their word about anything. Why would we accept their word about the birth of a child that he states was born 2 weeks before it was supposedly born? Why have they come up with reasons as to why, first of all, the baby was supposed to be born a home birth, but they wouldn't reveal the names of the doctors, etc., etc., creating a huge mystery, all of which is very damaging to the royal family and has led people to believe that those children were not born of her body. Now, if they were born of her body, the mere fact that she has behaved the way she has and he has behaved the way he has leads one to conclude that they have mischievously created a groundswell of doubt, which is not only damaging to the monarchy, and it has to be said, to their own reputations, but to their children's interests in the present and in the future. If you take all of that into consideration and realize that this is a huge constitutional issue that has arisen directly as a result of their conduct. Really, the authorities are actually duty-bound to step in and prevent this doubt continuing. It's really very simple. If those children were born of Meghan's body, the palace should provide us with incontrovertible proof, us being the citizens of the country. They have always provided us with incontrovertible proof of the legitimacy of each and every other heir. This did not take place with either Archie's birth or Lili's birth. It is an omission that needs to be rectified. It couldn't be simpler. This is their obligation to us, the citizens of this country, and all the other realms of which those two children stand a very good chance of reigning over one day. Let's remember the very cynical observation that Harry and Meghan are one plane crash away from the throne. Let's remember that cynical observation. I won't say who said it. We don't need to say who said it. Fingers crossed, let's hope. That means that this is a situation that, if it's not cleared up, other heirs to the throne who are lower down the line of succession would be prevented from occupying their rightful positions without doubt arising that they are in a wrong place in the line of succession and that they should actually be higher up the line of succession than they presently are. So far, the palace have not really been able to do anything, and now I'm going to cut the palace some slack by pointing out that the system couldn't be simpler. The birth of children is registered. It's a perfectly innocent, natural process. And a lot of it is done on faith, really. You trust the word of the person who is informing the registrar. I've been told this by the registrars themselves. The palace has not been able to act upon any of this so far because there is no real groundswell of actual demand that it be acted upon. Everything has been so far kept away from the mainstream media, who have failed to touch this subject, notwithstanding the fact that they also, many of them also, share many of the concerns that I am expressing. Because this country is governed by law, even if the palace suspected, and I'm being careful how I couch all of this, that there was a need to clear up doubt, they cannot go in gangbusters and say, okay, we need to see this, we need to see that, we need to see the other. Unless there is a groundswell of demand that means that the situation is now of sufficient moment where the public is concerned that it should be cleared up. At the moment, the palace have been playing ostrich for the last several years. They took an inordinate length of time to put Lili in the line of succession. They also announced that Lili had been born not to, but for the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, a clear implication that the child was not delivered of Meghan's body. That's what for means as opposed to. A very important word. But, of course, the way the process goes, it's very simple. If a couple provides, any couple in the line of succession, provides a birth certificate that says that the royal is the legally registered parent and his or her lawfully married spouse is the other parent, the palace is obliged to put them in the line of succession. The only way this situation is going to be resolved is if the public demand that the doubts that they have had for some considerable length of time are cleared up. I think this is so momentous, this situation, and it is so damaging to keep this bubbling beneath the surface. As everybody thinks, well, it's so hot to handle, we better not handle it at all. I think that is a huge mistake that the palace is making. I think it is a huge, huge mistake. And I'll tell you why I think it's a mistake. Harry and Meghan all want plane crash away from the throne. Yes, the royal family have other issues that need to be dealt with at the moment. There's the King's health. There's Catherine's health. This is the ideal time to clear this up. While people have sufficient sympathy for the King and the Princess of Wales and sufficient care for their health, now is the natural time for the palace to step in, and it couldn't be simpler. Provide proof that those children were born of Meghan's body, and not only did she produce them from her body, but that they were born of her own body, meaning that they are the product of her eggs. It's not enough that they are of her body without being her eggs. Under the rules governing titles and the right to the throne, they have to be of her body, her egg, as well as she has to carry the child, whoever she is. Whether it's Meghan or anybody else is quite beside the point. You know, in the Netflix show, They obviously are aware that the public is aware, asks questions and smells are at, because they actually, in the Netflix show, if you recall, they exhibited a scan of Archie. However, they redacted all of the information that tops and tails the scans. Sorry, I have cousins who are gynecologists and obstetricians. I have friends who've given birth to babies. I have friends whose children have given birth. It's a perfectly standard thing for a scan to have the identifying features of the fetus. If the identifying features of the fetus have been removed, that does not furnish proof as to the fact that that fetus belonged to the claimants of the fetus. It couldn't be simpler. That again is yet another obfuscation and yet another doubt that has arisen as a result of their actions. The solution, again, is really simple. The palace should make an announcement confirming that Archie and Lilibet were born of Meghan's body, meaning her eggs, as well as she carried those children. And if they don't do it, not only and I can see why they might well not do it, and most likely won't do it, because they are going to do the typical thing of playing ostrich, head in the sand. It will go away. This is not going away. This is the one thing that's not going away, because Meghan and Harry have shown themselves to be so unreliable, and their conduct has made people aware of the fact that there is an arguable case for the fact that those children were not born by her or born to her, and that they are not of her body. That if the palace keep on ignoring this, which I suspect they will continue to do, certainly in the short term, aside from anything else, even if they decided, wow, Georgie Campbell's really right, we really should do something, I don't think they're going to do it in the next week or two, because they wouldn't want to give me or anybody else the satisfaction that they were responding to any pressure from me or the public. So let's be clear about the fact there's going to be no immediate reaction, but if they're sensible, there will be a reaction, in much the same way that the king got Edward and Anne added to as councillors of state when that issue arose, and that issue was discussed by the public, me included with all of you. And I encouraged people to write into the palace, and I'm sure people did. And if people want to write into the palace about this, I would not discourage them from doing so. But the only solution to make this go away is if those children were genuinely born of Meghan's body and born by her, B-O-R-N and B-O-R-N-E, slightly different word, there should be no question that they should be eager. The palace should be eager. Meghan and Harry should be eager. Their children's interests demand that they all be eager to clear up these doubts. It is in everybody's best interest that this subject be put to bed. If it is not put to bed at all, it feeds the doubt, and it actually would lead rational people to conclude that either the reason why they are not going to affirm that the births were regular despite all the irregularities surrounding them, not the least of which was the physical evidence of bumps dancing around and Meghan at 8 months sinking down onto her haunches in high heels and bouncing right back up, legs tightly shut, knees glued together, with Harry standing right there and not offering to help her. Not only ungentlemanly, but you would imagine any prospective father would actually feel somewhat protective of his son if his wife was carrying the son. Of course, the mere fact that his wife is so uniquely gifted that she can get down on her haunches, legs closed, knees glued together, no assistance required, bounce back up. Do you see why there is actual rational and a valid reason to doubt, and why people's doubts should be addressed? And I would actually have to say, if this matter is ignored indefinitely, the palace and the royal family are remiss in their duty to the people of Britain. Their advisors at the palace will be remiss to them, and I have to tell you, some of the royal family are extremely decent and very dedicated, and I don't think that they will be at all shy to actually rectify this matter once it becomes, once they are made fully aware of the tremendous damage that is being done to the monarchy as a result of this subject being unresolved. Of course, if you read my book, you will see that a lot of the courtiers, the way the system works is junior courtiers keep things from middle ranking and senior courtiers. And the worse the news is the longer it takes to get to the top. And by the time it travels up the food chain, courtier-wise, it's already spread like a cancer in the public domain. And often it still doesn't reach the royal family itself. Well, I think you, the public, should actually do something about this and bring it to the attention of the authorities that you want this matter resolved and that you will not be satisfied until the public is furnished with proof that those children were born to Meghan and they were born by Meghan and they were born of Meghan's body. That's eggs, uterus, and then disgorging, to put not too fine a point on it. If this doesn't happen, I'm afraid the only conclusion reasonable people would come to is that it's not being addressed because it's true. That would be the only reason why it was not addressed, and that the doubt wasn't cleared up. This is an ever-growing boil that needs to be lanced. Really. And if you do not agree with me, I fully respect your right to disagree with me. But I know enough about what is going on with the public and behind the scenes to say that the courtiers who are ignoring the danger to the monarchy are remiss, not only in terms of their duty to their principals, that is the royal family, but they are remiss in their duty to the monarchy generally and to the citizens of this country and other countries who are subjects of the king and subjects, future putative subjects, I should say, putative subjects of a future monarch, which is what possibly Archie and Lili are. And so I hope that, if only for the moment, addresses the subject to everybody's satisfaction. As I said, whatever happens, I don't think it's going to happen day after tomorrow. But I would sincerely hope that the palace make the announcement and furnishing the proof. Meghan's right to privacy does not trump our right to know that somebody who has shown herself to be untrustworthy and unreliable, that we should rely upon her word or his word, because he's also shown himself to be unreliable and untrustworthy. And they have made conflicting statements and their behavior has been so bizarre. And no, we want this matter cleared up once and for all. And if it can't be cleared up, as far as I'm concerned, I do not acknowledge those children as being legitimate. And nobody can say that I have anything against adopted children or surrogate children, because I have 2 adopted children myself, and I have moved heaven and earth for them to have all of the rights that any child would have had it popped out of me. And I love my children. I couldn't love them more, no matter how I came by them. And so this is not about adoption. This is not about surrogacy. This is about the rights of the British people to have only properly ratified princes and princesses and others in the line of succession. Couldn't be simpler. I hope that I have covered at least enough of the ground to satisfy your curiosity and interest and concerns. And if I haven't, please feel free to ask me any question you'd like on the subject, because I hadn't actually intended for this matter to arise at this time, but it has sort of popped out. So, and since it's popped up and has popped out, let it pop. And more than that, I can't say at this point, except thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please keep the questions and comments coming in so I will know what you would like us to be speaking about. Okay? Thank you so much. God bless and goodbye. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, and take good care. Godspeed.